Welcome to Quarantine Kids Storytime. This is the tale of Peter Pan by JM Barrie. Enjoy!
Chapter 11. Wendy's Story.
Listen then,
said Wendy, settling down to her story with Michael at her feet and 7 boys in the bed.
there was once a gentleman.
I had rather he'd been a lady.
I wish he'd been a white rat.
Quiet! There was a lady also.
Oh, Mummy, you mean that there's a lady also, don't you? She's not dead, is she?
Oh, no.
I am awfully glad she isn't dead. Are you glad, John?
Of course I am.
Are you glad, Nibs?
Rather.
Are you glad, twins?
We are glad.
Oh, dear.
Little less noise there.
Peter called out, determined that she should have fair play, however beastly a story it might be in his opinion.
The gentleman's name was Mr. Darling, and her name was Mrs. Darling.
I knew them.
I think I knew them.
They were married, you know. And what do you think they had?
White rats.
No.
It's awfully puzzling.
Quiet, Tootles. They had 3 descendants.
What is descendants?
Well, you are one, twin.
Did you hear that, John? I'm a descendant.
Descendants are only children.
Oh, dear, oh, dear. Now, these 3 children had a faithful nurse called Nana, but Mr. Darling was angry with her and chained her up in the yard, and so all the children flew away.
It's an awfully good story.
They flew away to the Neverland, where the lost children were.
I just thought they did. I don't know how it is, but I just thought they did.
Oh, Wendy, was one of the lost children called Tootles?
Yes, he was.
I am in a story! Hurrah! I am in a story, Nibs.
Hush. Now, I want you to consider the feelings of the unhappy parents with all their children flown away.
Oh.
They all moaned, though they were not really considering the feelings of the unhappy parents one jot.
Think of the empty beds.
Oh.
It's awfully sad.
I don't see how it could have a happy ending. Do you, Nibs?
I'm frightfully anxious.
If you knew how great is a mother's love, you would have no fear.
She had now come to the part that Peter hated.
I do like a mother's love.
Said Tootles, hitting Nibs with a pillow.
Do you like a mother's love, Nibs?
I do just.
Said Nibs, hitting back.
You see, our heroine knew that the mother would always leave a window open for her children to fly back by, so they stayed away for years and had a lovely time.
Did they ever go back?
Wendy braced herself up for her finest effort,
Let us now take a peep into the future.
and they all gave themselves the twist that makes peeps into the future easier.
Years have rolled by, and who is this elegant lady of uncertain age alighting at the station of London?
Oh, Wendy, who is she?
Cried Nibs, every bit as excited as if he didn't know.
Can it be? Yes. No. It is. The fair Wendy.
Oh.
And who are the 2 noble portly figures accompanying her, now grown to man's estate? Can they be John and Michael? They are.
Oh.
You see, dear brothers,
Says Wendy, pointing upwards.
there is a window still standing open. Oh, now we are rewarded for our sublime faith in our mother's love. So up they flew to their mummy and daddy, and pen cannot describe the happy scene over which we draw a veil.
That was the story, and they were as pleased with it as the fair narrator herself. Everything just as it should be, you see. Off we skipped, like the most heartless things in the world, which is what children are, but so attractive. And we have an entirely selfish time, and then, when we have need of special attention, we nobly return for it, confident that we shall be rewarded instead of smacked. So great indeed was their faith in a mother's love that they felt they could afford to be callous for a bit longer. But there was one there who knew better, and when Wendy finished, he uttered a hollow groan.
What is it, Peter?
she cried, running to him, thinking he was ill. She felt him solicitously lower down than his chest.
Where is it, Peter?
It isn't that kind of pain.
Then what kind is it?
Wendy, you're wrong about mothers.
They all gathered round him in a fright, so alarming was his agitation, and with a fine candour he told them what he had hitherto concealed.
Long ago, I thought like you, that my mother would always keep the window open for me. So I stayed away for moons and moons and moons, and then flew back. But the window was barred, for mother had forgotten all about me, and there was another little boy sleeping in my bed.
I am not sure that this was true, but Peter thought it was, and it scared them.
Are you sure mothers are like that?
Yes.
So, this was the truth about mothers. The toads. Still, it is best to be careful, and no one knows so quickly as a child when he should give in.
Wendy, let's go home,
cried John and Michael together.
Yes.
She said, clutching them.
Not tonight.
Asked the lost boys, bewildered. They knew in what they called their hearts that one can get on quite well without a mother, and that it is only the mothers who think you can't.
At once.
Wendy replied resolutely, for the horrible thought had come to her.
Perhaps mother is in half mourning by this time.
This dread made her forgetful of what must be Peter's feelings, and she said to him rather sharply,
Peter, will you make the necessary arrangements?
If you wish it,
he replied as coolly as if she had asked him to pass the nuts. Not so much as a sorry to lose you between them. If she did not mind the parting, he was going to show her, was Peter, that neither did he. But of course he cared very much, and he was so full of wrath against grown-up, who, as usual, was spoiling everything, that as soon as he got inside his tree, he breathed intentionally quick, short breaths at the rate of about 5 to a second. He did this because there is a saying in the Netherland that every time you breathe, a grown-up dies, and Peter was killing them off vindictively as fast as possible. Then, having given the necessary instructions to the Redskins, he returned to the home where an unworthy scene had been enacted in his absence. Panic-stricken at the thought of losing Wendy, the lost boys had advanced on her threateningly.
It will be worse than before she came.
They cried.
We shan't let her go.
Let's keep her prisoner.
Aye, chain her up.
In her extremity, an instinct told her to which of them to turn.
Tootles, I appeal to you.
Was it not strange she appealed to Tootles, quite the silliest one? Grandly, however, did Tootles respond. For that one moment he dropped his silliness and spoke with dignity.
I am just Tootles, and nobody minds me. But the first who does not behave to Wendy like an English gentleman, I will blood him severely.
He drew back his hanger, and for that instant his sun was at noon. The others held back uneasily. Then Peter returned, and they saw all at once that they would get no support from him. He would keep no girl in the Neverland against her will.
Wendy, I've asked the Redskins to guide you through the wood, as flying tires you so.
Thank you, Peter.
Then Tinkerbell will take you across the sea. Wake her, Nibs.
Nibs had to knock twice before he got an answer, though Tink had really been sitting up in bed listening for some time.
Who are you? How dare you? Go away! You are to get up, Tink, and take Wendy on a journey.
Of course, Tink had been delighted to hear that Wendy was going, but she was jolly well determined not to be her courier, and she said so in still more offensive language. Then she pretended to be asleep again.
She says she won't.
Nibs exclaimed, aghast at such insubordination, whereupon Peter went sternly toward the young lady's chamber.
Tink, if you don't get up and dress at once, I will open the curtains, and then we shall all see you in your negligee.
This made her leap to the floor.
Who said
she cried. In the meantime, the boys were gazing very forlornly at Wendy, now equipped with John and Michael for the journey. By this time they were dejected, not merely because they were about to lose her, but also because they felt that she was going off to something nice to which they had not been invited. Novelty was beckoning to them as usual. Crediting them with a nobler feeling, Wendy melted.
Dear ones, if you all come with me, I feel almost sure that I can get my father and mother to adopt you.
The invitation was meant specially for Peter, but each of the boys was thinking exclusively of himself, and at once they jumped with joy.
But won't they think us rather a handful?
Nibs asked in the middle of his jump.
Oh, no,
said Wendy, rapidly thinking it out.
It will only mean having a few beds in the drawing room. They can be hidden behind screens on first Thursdays.
Peter, can we go?
They all cried imploringly. They took it for granted that if they went he would go also, but really they scarcely cared. Thus children are ever ready, when novelty knocks, to desert their dearest ones.
All right,
Peter replied with a bitter smile, and immediately they rushed to get their things.
And now, Peter,
Wendy said, thinking she had put everything right.
I am going to give you your medicine before you go.
She loved to give them medicine, and undoubtedly gave them too much. Of course it was only water, but it was out of a bottle, and she always shook the bottle and counted the drops, which gave it a certain medicinal quality. On this occasion, however, she did not give Peter his portion, for just as she had prepared it, she saw a look on his face that made her heart sink.
Get your things, Peter.
No, I'm not going with you, Wendy.
Yes, Peter.
No.
To show that her departure would leave him unmoved, he skipped up and down the room, playing gaily on his heartless pipes. She had to run about after him, though it was rather undignified.
To find your mother.
Now, if Peter had ever quite a mother, he no longer missed her. He could do very well without one. He had thought them out and remembered only their bad points.
No. Perhaps you would say I was old, and I just want always to be a little boy and to have fun.
But Peter...
No.
And so the others had to be told.
Peter isn't coming.
Peter not coming? They gazed blankly at him, their sticks over their backs, and on each stick a bundle. Their first thought was that if Peter was not going, he had probably changed his mind about letting them go. But he was far too proud for that.
If you find your mothers, I hope you will like them.
The awful cynicism of this made an uncomfortable impression, and most of them began to look rather doubtful. After all, their faces said, were they not noodles to want to go?
Now then, no fuss, no blubbering. Goodbye, Wendy.
And he held out his hand cheerily, quite as if they must really go now, for he had something important to do. She had to take his hand, and there was no indication that he would prefer a thimble.
Will you remember about changing your flannels, Peter?
She said, lingering over him. She was always so particular about their flannels.
Yes.
And will you take your medicine?
Yes.
That seemed to be everything, and an awkward pause followed. Peter, however, was not the kind that breaks down before other people.
Are you ready, Tinkerbell?
Aye.
Then lead the way.
Tink darted up the nearest tree, but no one followed her, for it was at this moment that the pirates made their dreadful attack upon the Redskins. Above, where all had been so still, the air was rent with shrieks and the clash of steel. Below, there was dead silence. Mouths opened and remained open. Wendy fell on her knees, but her arms were extended toward Peter. All arms were extended to him, as if suddenly blown in his direction. They were beseeching him mutely not to desert them. As for Peter, he seized his sword, the same he thought he had slain Barbecue with, and the lust of battle was in his eye.
Oh no! What will happen to Peter, Wendy and the boys next? Will the pirates get them? Tune in next week for the next exciting chapter of Peter Pan by JM Barrie. The narrator was played by Sidney Kean. Wendy was played by Alice J. Crouch. Curly and Twin 2 was played by Christine Hepworth-James. Tinkerbell, Nibs and Twin 1 was played by Sophie Methuen-Turner. Peter Pan was played by Jimmy Dean. John was played by Emma Howarth. Slightly and Michael was played by Claire Coull. And Tootles was played by Andrea Rose. If you are enjoying this tale, then please donate to Great Ormond Street Hospital. In his lifetime, JM Barrie donated the royalties of Peter Pan to this wonderful cause. It not only enriches children's lives, but the wonders that it has in providing many cures for children is unbelievable. So please do continue the tradition that JM Barrie started and donate directly to them. The Just Giving link is down below in the description box. Take care everybody, and see you next time. Stay safe. Bye bye.